a very short slideshow. I'm sorry, I've always thought PowerPoint was basically a way of killing students. But I wanted to show you a few examples from your composition project. And none of these are mine. I just did a Google search and found these examples. And the first one of the 5 things is rule of thirds, and here are some samples. You can see how the viewfinder is divided up into thirds, and our tiger here is in pretty much one of those intersections. And here's some more examples. The bee happens to be facing the wrong direction. Normally somebody should have more room to look than is behind him, but just some more examples. And I tried to find a variety of different subjects. And leading lines. Normally, lines lead to a subject. I have a couple examples here that do not. This one leads to a subject. It is not a good example of rule of thirds. Here we have the stream leading our eyes back to the ranch in the distance. A nice S-curve. This is very symmetrical, very interesting image, and the sort of unusual clarity is high dynamic range photography. And there's a video I'll post part of the way through the semester that shows you a little bit how to do this. It does require an SLR style camera. Something done indoors. There's no subject for it to lead you to, but interesting image nonetheless. Nice little S-curve again that leads you up to the subject. I assume the doorway and the man. And a straighter line, but they all lead you in directly to the barn. And again, line that leads you back into the distance. And simple backgrounds. This will be quick. The top one is an unsimple background. It's a little hard to find the teacup. And down below is an example of a simple background. This is done again with a digital SLR where you can open up the aperture and get a shallow depth of field. Taking a complicated background, a whole lot of leaves and stuff, and making them simple by blurring them out of focus. Same way here, also a very unusual view. And just the flowers are in light and the background is in shadow, so we don't see the detail that's back there. Baby picture looks like window light. We can see the window in his or her eyes. I'm not sure exactly whether this is a studio shot or not, but it's kind of great. Unusual points of view. I had to show you this one. It takes a while to figure out that it's a dog eating in a dog dish, and your camera's on the other side. Very unusual point of view, and again, this is an HDR photography. Love this. Leading lines and a very unusual point of view. And again, instead of photographing people walking, we're getting their reflection. And down at ant's eye view, ground level. Also a good example of framing. I think that's possibly the Washington Monument off in the distance. And speaking of framing, this is not what we're talking about. Also sort of an unusual point of view that the bride here is framed. I love the guy's tennis shoes. Here we're using contrast and value to frame. A more typical example. Yet another very typical example, but just because it's typical doesn't mean it's bad. Love this, very unusual. And really beautiful black and white shot. Okay,